where not just women are in danger, but all marginalized people, where being uniquely different right now might truly be considered a crime. It seems as though we had all slipped into a false sense of comfort, that justice would prevail and that good would win in the end. Well, good did not win this election, but good will win in the end. So what today means is that we are far from the end. Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here. The fight for the right to be free, to be who we are, to be equal. Let's march together through this darkness, and with each step, know that we are not afraid. That we are not alone. That we will not back down. That there is power in our unity, and that no opposing force stands a chance in the face of true solidarity. And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything,
Boston Red here with Friday Java, a weekly magazine of political theory, polling, and commentary. It is part of the Being History called people that make up this fascinating journey. We are part of the Obama Network. For that, we make no apologies. What we pledge to do is give you the facts, unabridged, the history, what body politics is, the most up-to-date theories of political science and psychology. Stay tuned for this incredible ride. Boston Red, peace out.
Good morning. We are live this morning on WBRN Radio in Boston and on the Boston Red Network. This is Friday Java on the 28th of July 2017. We are starting out here today on Spreaker, the iHeart concession, and the other outlets will be with momentarily. It's about 8 minutes after 4 Eastern Standard Time, which that would put us at about about 1 something on the coast, the Pacific Coast, Pacific Standard Time, and about 2 something, Pacific Standard Time. And nonetheless, it's let's see, 2, that's 1. Okay. And nonetheless, about 2:10 Mountain Time and about 3:10 Central Time. In a dynamic shifting of things, the Senate, through various machinations, and we'll go to that now, the Affordable Care Act is still intact. The Republicans, under their leader, McConnell, decided that once again he would do a grandstanding type of situation. Let me just go to that. And we also have our friends from the University of Virginia. As soon as we get to it, where are we? Anyway, nonetheless, we'll find it here in a minute. In the Washington Post, the headline is that Senate rejects measures to partly repeal Obamacare, dealing a blow to the Republicans. This is from Sean Sullivan and Juliet Epron. Nonetheless, Senate Republicans suffered a dynamic failure early Friday in their bid to advance a scale down. This is so-called Skinny Act, throwing into question whether they can actually repeal the Health Care Act known as Obamacare. The latest effort to redraw the ACA failed after Senator McCain, and as Hallie said, no doubt Senator McCain is an all-American hero with two other courageous Republicans from Alaska, Lisa McCoskey, and from Maine, Susan Collin. With their votes, it was done. Period. The Arizona Republican, of course, he has a brain cancer and has a reason. Our only regret is that we didn't achieve what we hoped to accomplish. That is from Senator McConnell, known as the Old Man McConnell, said after the failed vote. McConnell is in a deep, rejected tone, pulled the entire legislation from consideration and set up votes on nominations. It's time to move on, he said, culminating 75 hours set of roll call votes. At one point, the Vice President Pence, there to be a tiebreaker if needed, stood talking at length with Senator McCain. On Thursday, McCain had been seeking an ironclad guarantee from the Speaker of the House, little Paulie Ryan of Wisconsin. If the Senate approved the latest proposal, the House would not move to quickly approve the bill in its current form and instead engage in a broad House negotiation, which is called a conference for a broad rollback of the law. Ryan issued a statement intended to assure the concerns assure the concerns of Senator McCain and two others. That was Lindsey Graham of South Carolina and Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. But Senator McCain deemed the Speaker's comments insufficient. Now, as far as Johnson and Graham, they were going along to get along. The standoff between the two chambers highlights the extent to which the Republicans still have not reached a consensus to rewrite the law passed by President Obama. McConnell's rattled both moderates, Collin of Maine and Lisa McCoskey there, and they were the ones that were the heroes. Now, had Lisa McCoskey and just Susan Collin decided that they obviously were voting against it, Pence could have did the tie. But what this says about the Republican Senate is they absolutely have, as Lyndon Johnson would say, no balls at all, period. The measure would have also eliminated funding for preventive care under the 2010 law, prohibit Medicare beneficiaries from being reimbursed for services at Planned Parenthood. It would end the 2.3% tax on medical devices. Shortly after its introduction, the Congressional Budget Office issued an estimate that 16 million people would lose their coverage, that premiums would rise. After weeks of secretive negotiation, McConnell unveiled the draft only a couple of hours before the Friday morning vote. Shortly after it was introduced, the Budget Office estimated 16 million people would lose their coverage and premium would rise at 20% a year between 2018 and 2026. If Republicans enacted the so-called skinny legislation, from Sarah Rosenblum, health law and policy professor at the George Washington University, said the bill would make enormous changes to private and public insurance. Translating their pledge to repeal what they derivatively called Obamacare into law has proved an embarrassingly difficult for Republicans. Now, the situation is this, and this was a preliminary by the Budget Office, but when you start talking about 16 million people, it could have been 2 million people too many, but to 20% per year, 2018, 2019. So in other words, it would went up, if my arithmetic is correct here, 160% in the roughly 2018, 2019 to 2026. It would have been a fiasco, to say the least. And that is not talked about. Senator Sanders, will have something from him in a minute here. But nonetheless, let's move on very quickly here, as we're a little bit behind. The Republican female senators who disapproved of the Republican-backed skinny plan are facing increasing pointed backlash from men in their party. Doesn't really matter. They did the right thing. They were told that they and others deserve a physical reprimand for their decision not to support the act. Bukowski, who voted with Collins against starting the debate this week, was specifically called out by President Obama and told by a cabinet official that Alaska would suffer from her choice. Now, this is one of those things that Lisa McCoskey was fearless. That was one other mistake made by the Republican operation there, the DJ Trump White House. Should not have happened, and it did happen, and it's one of those situations that shows its ugly head from time to time in legislation. Now, this is from the Alaskan Dispatch. We usually call upon them, and we like to get the local news as quickly as we can. Lisa McCoskey said that she was not swayed by pressure from the Trump administration. This is Eric Martinson wrote this article. Confirmed that she'd received calls from the Interior Secretary, Ryan Linke, at the behest of the president. I guess he's the SOB. Anyway, in the interview, McCoskey, the Republican, did not want to divulge the exact content of the call by both the president before the vote and Zinke after the vote, Zinke, I guess is how I pronounce the name. But it was clear in saying the intent was to pressure her vote, and she didn't feel the pressure in the slightest. McCoskey said that she spoke to Trump on Tuesday before voting to proceed with the debate. And, it was a difficult conversation, but I did not indicate where I was going one way or the other. It's a very wise decision. Wednesday after the vote, McCoskey heard from Zinke, who she said shared with me what the president was not pleased. Well, the president's just not pleased. He's going to be less pleased now. From the DJ Trump operation, the great state of Alaska really let the Republicans down and our country down yesterday. Too bad. Well, we'll see what he says now. Unlike some other senators who had received strong arm from Trump over their reservations on the bill, Murkowski isn't up for re-election, and this is part of it to 2022. So in other words, there will be a presidential election before that. Murkowski, who heads the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, the Appropriations Subcommittee that oversees the Interior Department, having the Interior Secretary call about health care, was a pointed move on the part of the president. It was a silly move on the part of the president. Here's what we are dealing with. The president wanted to get the health care bill. If he's going to make calls that's understood, he has been doing it, and it is kind of his job. I don't have a hardship with that, but I don't have heartburn with all of that. So she's a very brave person, no doubt about that. And it was not a good idea to get her upset. I said I'm going to work with the new administration on things that matter to Alaska, whether it is on energy or whether it is access to land and health care. I intend to do just that, she said. And she said she and the president agreed that the status quo is unacceptable in health care, no doubt about it. The president has made, when we've come along with Bernie Sanders, the president has made comments before about the Australian system. In the end, she said the secretary was asked to deliver a message. He did. I certainly hope that those in the administration will continue to work with us. Well, it's up to the administration on what they do. Chris Fager, anyway, president of the Alaska Chamber of Commerce, said he got calls from someone in Washington on Tuesday afternoon alerting him that he might be hearing from Zinke. Well, heard from Zinke, but Zinke didn't have anything to say. From their lone representative, Young, said the congressman had been in direct communication with senior administration people, didn't do any good there. So he effectively had nothing to say, and that is where the legislation ended. Many times what happens in these cases, specifically in the case in Alaska, it did not work. Susan Collins also is not up for re-election, so in other words, this twitching of the arm, any coattails the Obama administration would not have, just simply did not work out. They can forget it and go back to it. We'll move on to the people at the University of Virginia. That is Larry Sabato's shop. I think we'll have time to get that in. If the Democrats have a chance to win the House next year, it might be because they translate a current big field of announced candidates into credible opportunities to flip not just some of the top seats in their lists of targets, but also some seats that are on paper might seem like they should be competitive. That is what happens a big if at certainly at this point Trump's on popularity and it will continue to get there. Nonetheless, this is by Carl Klondike. He is the editor of the Crystal Ball. The House 2008. How big is the playing field? Well, that is always a question out there. You can't tell at this point in time, particularly in the House. They do mention some people there. The several embattled incumbents from districts that Democratic presidential candidate, brother John Kerry, won came very close to winning in 2004, ended up eking out close victories in 2-6, including Representative Chris Shays. That he was of Connecticut. Heather Wilson, she was of New Mexico. People don't remember her because it's been too long down in Florida. Jim Gerlich. That was back over 10 years ago. So you don't remember at this time what it is. Campaign Institute analysis of House challengers there. The early returns to Democrats in that regard of fable. Earlier this week, Campaign Finance Institute, writing for the Brookings Institute's Michael Melban, the number, particularly compared to recent cycles, are eye-popping, and this is something in the chart here, and you don't have the chart. But anyway, at this point in the cycle, Democrats have more than 200 filled House challengers who have raised at least a small amount of money, $5,000 or more dollars. It is early in the cycle. Granted, $5,000 raised and being registered with the Federal Election Commission isn't a tremendously high bar, no doubt about that. But it does mean they're out there. We're getting letters from Big Jim Thompson out of Wichita, Kansas, and various others. Some of the toss-ups here, which really does matter. Martha McSally, she is from Arizona. It used to be lean Republican. Now it is a toss-up. Raffenbacher out of California, toss-up there. And some of these others have moved. Bose of Illinois, the likely Republican. Andy Barr of Kentucky, likely Republican. Frelinghausen of New Jersey leans Republican. It's too early to say on some of these now. Some will be open. Pierce, what is he? Is he's an open seat there in Nevada. Another open seat is a toss-up. Leans Democrat toss-up. Rosen there is an open seat. And Tierney in New York, 22, leans Republican. Used to be likely Republican. So forth and so on. Scott Taylor in Virginia, likely Republican there. Now, some of these are their rating changes, which are not as important now. But out on the West Coast, in and near Orange County, Democrats are targeting several longtime people. Orange County has flipped. We used to have an office at Cranston in Orange County. Reckenbacher, Batcher, is one there that is in trouble out there. And in general, in California, there are a number of them that will be challenged, and it could be a totally different type. And now, first termers, who is this? Jackie Rosen, that's Democrat of Nevada, is challenging Dean Heller. Dean Heller is in a lot of trouble. He voted for this particular situation. So, again, that is one of the problems out there. Now, rating some of these, we gave you the toss-ups. Barbara Comstock, Hurd, Beacon, Jason Lewis is even a toss-up in Minnesota. Kaufman in Colorado. Cumberlow in Florida. Rickenbacker, we named him before. Old Daryl Iser, the Alarm King, made him a multi-millionaire. Denham, and then California 10. Iser's in 49 in California. Martha McSally in Arizona 2. Some of them that lean Republican. Now that one race we covered in Georgia, that's Karen Handel. We don't know where she'll be there. Ron Bloom in Iowa 1. That's Georgia 6. Leans Republican. They moved some of these to likely Republican here, and won't get into all of those, but the ones they moved from lean to likely Young, and well, he'll be there till he dies. Mimi Walters of California 45, Diaz of Ballard of Florida 25. Trying to get some of these. Andy Barr, we talked about, that's Kentucky 6. Likely Republican, I'm sorry. And MacArthur, what is this, in Jersey. And Mimi Love, Meyer Love, out in Utah 4. She's an African American. She will no doubt be there. I don't think they'll get anyone up there. And these are some of the open seats here. Toss up Waltz, that's in Minnesota 1. Potter in New Hampshire 1. Leans Democrat. Several of these. Charlie Tuna Chris. Yeah. Murphy, this is in Florida 13. Florida 7. Rick Nolan in 8. He's been had everything thrown at him, but it could be thrown at him. Goffenheimer in Jersey 5. Likely Democrat. Costa. Carvana. Good friend Sherry Busto in Illinois 17. Snyder in Illinois 10. Peterson in Minnesota 7. Amy Castor, she's in New Hampshire 2. She's had some close races, probably not as close there. Mahoney, she's in New York 18. Ron Kine, he's in Wisconsin 3. Those are probably safer. You're going to see a lot of these races are going to be turning. Let's now do the sports as we find ourselves a little bit behind here. But we are live. We don't usually do a live program. We record it, but this is one live. We have some technical difficulties setting up as we moved on, but Now everything is, as far as I know, okay, we'll listen to this and we can make correction for our other outlets if need be. Nonetheless, we'll go to Major League Baseball. Some very interesting situations there with the LA Dodgers as to where they are. The Cubbies won tonight. They won 10 of the last game since the All-Star break. They've been moving on. The Brewers were at the Nationals. The Cubbies go on to play the Brewers this weekend. Nationals 15-2. The Angels were in Cleveland. Cleveland 2-1 over the Angels, and in 10. The Athletics were in Toronto. Toronto 8-4. A final in 11. Also, the Tampa Bay Rays were in a Yankee Stadium, or in New York. 6-5 the score. Very competitive game there. The Yankees had 14 hits, no errors, and the Rays 11 hits and no errors there. 1 in 10. The Yankees did pull it out. Mr. Chapman got the win. The Reds and Marlins in Florida. Reds are 4-1. The Cubs and White Sox on the south side of Chicago. President Obama's team 6-3 was the final score there. On the line, the Cubs had 9 hits, no errors, and the White Sox 5 hits, no errors. Mr. Lester was the winner. The D-backs and Cardinals in St. Louis. D-backs shut the Cardinals out 4-0. The Mets and Padres in San Diego. Padres win this one 7-5. There's a wild card race going on between the D-backs and the D-backs and the Rockies. They are running for the wild card. That is this time of year. It is the end of July. Incidentally, the 2 days, I think, to training deadline. 3 days, Monday and on Monday. So you'll see some trades being made. The Phillies have made some trades. Let's see who else has made a trade. Well, we'll get that for you on the Monday Morning Quarterback. We will see you on the Monday Morning Quarterback on WBRN. Also, the macroeconomic program will be this weekend. This Numbers Man also on this channel, and we will get out. We've been doing this for the last 6 weeks. An open source report. That's our technical program. We're trying to bring these together as we do more of these live presentations here with the Spreaker iHeart concession, and we'll be on the other outlets like Blog Talk later in the morning here. Nonetheless, have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you on the week that was on Saturday morning on the same outlets, and we'll see you then. As Paul Harvey would say, let me just look at this. Well, we do have time for a little bit of Bernie Sanders speaking last night on the Senate floor. I don't have him queued up, but easily can do this. I believe it should work out. And let's go to Bernie Sanders here. He was speaking last night and before the vote, but we'll hear a little bit of what he has to say. Maybe we'll not hear a little bit of what Bernie has to say. But anyway, nonetheless, it's not going to work out for us. Let me see if I can cue it up. I'm not certain if we can. I just try this really quickly here and see if we can cue it up. Working live here. We'll see if we can get it done. Get the sound straight here.
Responded this morning to the protesters who were marching yesterday, again, do a big debate about what is a cut and what isn't a cut. But let me ask you about the Affordable Care Act and the executive action the president has taken. What do you make of it in terms of the health of that bill or that program?
This is the wrong queuing up. Let's try it one more time here. Let's see. Forgetting that we have a little different setup over here than what I had anticipated with Bernie. Let me see. No, this was the January one that came up here. I assume that we had the latest one from Bernie. And where did Bernie go? Bernie is somewhere. Well, let me try this. Where is Bernie? Here we go. Now, this is Bernie.
They won't be able to buy insurance either.
Colleagues might think twice about going forward. But they have not had in this process the opportunity, amazingly enough, to hear from doctors, to hear from hospital administration, to hear from patient advocates, because, Mr. President, as you well know, despite the fact that we are dealing with an issue that impacts every single American, which is what healthcare does, an issue that impacts 1/6 of the American economy, over $3 trillion a year, there has not been one public hearing on this bill. This bill has been written behind closed doors. Anyone listening to Senator McCain the other day made that point. Now, how do you deal with 1/6 of the economy and their desire to transform the American healthcare system without listening to one doctor, without listening to one hospital administration, writing a bill with a few Republican senators behind closed doors? This is an unprecedented and disastrous process for healthcare. And just on those grounds alone, what every member of this Senate should agree to, and Senator McCain made this point, this process has been awful. Kill it now. Go back to what is called regular process here, regular order. Go back to the committee. Start this discussion. Please do not throw 22, 23 million people off of health insurance without hearing from doctors, patient advocates, hospital administrators. But no, that is not where the Republicans are at today. They want to rush this thing through behind closed doors and get a quick vote on this. Now, interestingly enough, Mr. President, as I understand it, Senator Daines of Montana today is going to introduce legislation for a Medicare for all health care system. That's very interesting, and I hope that this is really a breakthrough on the part of my Republican colleagues. I hope very much that finally they recognize that maybe the United States of America should join every other major country on earth in guaranteeing health care to all people as a right and not a privilege. And I hope that when Senator Daines comes down here, he will say that no, it does not make sense to throw 23 million more people off of health care, but in fact we have to move forward, do what Canada does, what Germany does, what UK does, what France does, what every major country on earth does, and guarantee health care to all people as a right. I hope very much that that is what Senator Daines will be saying. But you know what, Mr. President? I kind of think that that is not what he will be saying. I kind of think that in the midst of this discussion, in which millions of Americans are wondering whether or not they're going to continue to have health care, what's going to happen to their kids, what's going to happen to their parents. I suspect that what Senator Daines is doing is nothing more than an old political trick trying to embarrass Democrats. Will they support the Medicare for All bill introduced by Congressman John Conyers? And at a time when we are engaged in a very serious debate about the future of health care, I think this is not a time for political gains. Now, Senator Daines is serious about a Medicare for All proposal. Let us work together. But now is not the time for political gains. Senator Daines, as I understand it, is going to offer an amendment, but we don't know what he is amending because we don't even know what is in the legislation that the Republicans will bring forward. How do you amend something when we don't even have a base bill to amend? So this is, I suspect, hope I'm wrong. I hope Senator Daines has seen light, but I suspect not, and I suspect it's just a political game. But I do hope, by the way, at some point within this debate, if we can, if not, certainly in the near future, to in fact be introducing a Medicare for All single-payer program. It will be somewhat different than my friend John Conyers' House, but what it will do is say that in America, if you are rich or if you are poor, if you are a man, woman, and child, yes, you are entitled to health care as a human right and not a privilege.
Senator Bernie Sanders, the junior senator from the state of Vermont. As he mentioned Daines, Mary talked about this from Montana, bringing this so-called single-payer amendment as a poison pill there. It didn't work. None of the machinations of old man McConnell of Kentucky worked out in this scheme. The schemes just don't work. It's embarrassment to DJ Trump, no doubt about it. What it's telling Trump is you can't have your way on everything. Senator McConnell is wise to move on because they want to try to do something with taxes. They have a budget, a debt ceiling that they have to deal with, essential things. Nonetheless, we'll talk to you on the Week That Was tomorrow night and on Numbers Man, our macroeconomic program this weekend. Good day, finally.